Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Skoskouspo.
We have a very special guest with us tonight, Coach Amonte Hiller, Northwestern Lacrosse. Again, not to beat around the bush, let's go to that interview right now. Well, we are thrilled to be joined tonight by Coach Amonte Hiller. Thank you so much for joining us. Northwestern Lacrosse is about to head into a very special week, even with the extremely proud history of the program. And we want to get into all of those things. But before we get started, thank you again for taking the time to jump on with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
We wanted to start talking about this season. I mean, this has just been an incredible season so far. Kind of the season almost any other Northwestern program would dream about having, which we'll get into it a little bit. But it also kind of feels like there's something that you might be wanting a little bit more. I mean, you got dominant wins over great teams like Maryland, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Hopkins. How are you feeling about the team's progress through the season so far?
Feeling good about the progress. I mean, I think it's been a really fun season. Obviously, we lost a lot of talent last year, and it's kind of been a little bit of a rebuild. Brought a lot of new players in, whether it be first years or transfers, and then obviously developing the players that are already in the program. It's been a really fun process. I think our senior class that's been around has done an amazing job leading and just bringing great energy to the day-to-day. And then, the new players and the returners underneath that senior class have done a great job too. So it's been really fun to see them progress. I think we're getting better and better week by week, which is kind of all you can ask for as a coach. And so we're excited to continue to progress and see where we finish the regular season with our last 3 games, and then obviously into Big Tens and then hopefully playoffs.
You're talking about Big Tens. We're talking about playoffs. This is obviously something we've talked a lot about on the pod, and obviously you're familiar with this. Northwestern fans are familiar with this. We wanted to kind of talk a little bit about this idea of maintaining championship excellence. So, anyone who's listening to this is a Northwestern fan. We all know Northwestern's been fortunate to have many excellent teams across many sports, but really lacrosse and the program that you've built kind of stands in a category almost by itself, because you built this program where it seems like, year in and year out, the expectation is to be competing, for a national championship, a Big Ten championship, a national championship. We were talking about all the amazing wins that you've had this season. I mean, you have 2 losses by a total of 7 total goals, and those are against the number 1 and number 2 teams in the nation. And I would assume that your team and the seniors that you talked about are probably hoping to get a shot at one, if not both of those teams later in the year. But we were curious, what are the challenges, advantages and challenges of lifting and maintaining a program to a place like this where the standards are so high year in and year out?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest challenge I think with female athletes is just keeping them in a space where they love the game, they love the sport, they love to compete on a daily basis, and they really see this whole experience as a pathway to become a better person overall. And, the winning, the success that we have on the field is a byproduct of those things. I think the challenge is for them to let go of the obsession with the scoreboard and with the winning and the losing, and just really key in on growth, getting better each day, being really focused when you come to practice, having a lot of fun and being passionate with what you do, being willing to sacrifice and really pour into this journey. I think, obviously Northwestern is a tremendous academic institution as well. So, the student athletes at Northwestern really have to balance a lot. And, they also have to have the ability to pour into their craft on the field. And so we try to make that a fun and exciting experience so that, when they show up, it's not just another thing they have to check off the list. This is something that they've been waiting for all day. And I think that if you keep those things at the forefront and they love to compete, I think that they're naturally, anyone who loves to compete wants to be at the highest level and wants to grow and improve. And I think that for us, we just really try to keep ourselves focused on those things and let the rest, do the work.
Coach, we've had a couple players from some of the other programs on earlier this year. Lauren Wattis from the field hockey team. We talked to Sydney Supley last spring previewing the softball team. And in both cases, they talked about the role that the players have in extending the culture and supporting, exactly what you just outlined in terms of what your objectives are for the coaching staff. How do you see the players bringing the culture from era to era? With the losses from last year, obviously this is a huge change here in 2025. How have the players contributed to that continuity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's essential. They have to own this, and we're there to guide them and to help them and to kind of give them that historical perspective of what we've seen work and what we've seen as some of the challenges. But I think it's really their thing. And so they have to really take hold of it, take a lot of pride in it. And, when you own something, you're gonna want to pour into it that much more. So I think that is really key for our team. And I think this group in particular has done a great job of that. And been really engaged and prideful in what they want to become and what they want to represent and how they want to portray themselves every time, being role models. It's bigger than just the scoreboard. And so, they want to inspire people and really put a great product out there every time they step out on the field.
We were so interested to talk about, a couple specific players in terms of on-field performance, but everything that you're saying is so interested that I think now I'm wondering, are there particular players? Not asking you to single just a couple of players out, but I'm just curious, everything you're saying about, okay, we want to build that culture where the players are coming every day and they're appreciating the fun of the sport and just like loving to compete, loving to show up. Are there certain players on the team where you're like, okay, these are players who embody this. These are players who, have been in this program, have developed this kind of mentality. And when we arrive for practice every day, like, I know that these are the players who are going to set that tone that you're looking for.
Yeah. I think our senior class has done a really, really strong job of that. You have players obviously like Sam Smith and Sammy White that everyone knows their name, and they have done a great job at that, and even Emerson Bolig, I would put her in that category. But then you have other players in that class, like Serafina DeMuno, who's a local product, Megan Mulgrave, Kara Nugent. These are kids that just absolutely love this program, love this game, pour into everything that we represent, and have done a great job leading. And I think those are the types of players that really carry the day and make the difference. So I think it's just a combination of everyone. I don't think that, one person makes a difference for us. I think we lead by committee, and I think that's where our strength lies.
Yeah, so kind of bringing it back a little bit, you mentioned off the top replacing legendary players. Like someone, I mean, it's impossible to replace like an Izzy Skane, but you've got someone like Madison Taylor who's just been playing out of her mind, just taking that leap. What, what's it like having her kind of, I mean, like I say, you can't replace Izzy Skane, but she seems to be at least rising to the challenge. How's her progression been this year and moving forward?
Absolutely. I think if you actually went back and you watched the games last year, you would see this, but maybe you just didn't see it as much because of the strength of Izzy and Erin on that right side, that they garnered a lot of attention. But I think Maddie was doing a lot of the things that she's doing this year. She was doing them last year as well. And I think that it's just more pronounced now. And I mean, she's just a really special player. I think she loves this game. She's a competitor, tremendous work rate. And, she really has all the components that you see on the field for greatness. She's very similar to Izzy relative to her body control. You don't usually see players like that in the sport of lacrosse, where they can be so explosive but also control their body so well. And I think those two players do that tremendously. And one thing that makes Maddie pretty special too is she's a really strong finisher. So that when she gets most of the opportunities that she gets, she's capitalizing on. So it's been fun to kind of see her, um, you know, go into that role this year, and I think she's just done a great job leading and embracing it.
Go ahead, Scuzz.
I was going to say it's so impressive. I think you mentioned her performance last year, which was, I mean, she stood out for sure during the 2024 campaign. I think so often it was couched as, well, you've got to shut down Kuykendall and Skane, and that's giving Madison Taylor a ton of space to operate. And now, as presumably the number one defensive assignment for your opponents, she is still tearing them apart.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about this year is that I think that was an underlying thing even for her. Like, will she be able to do what she can do without those guys? And I think that she's done an amazing job, and I think that the players that we have this year have really done an amazing job around her. But I think one aspect of Madison, now that she is, getting all of that attention, the slides, the everything, you're seeing her feeding ability. I think she's one of the elite feeders in the game. And you really didn't see that as much last year because, she was more relying on her dodging ability, but she is a tremendous feeder and, sharing the ball. So that's been really cool to kind of see her develop that aspect of her game even to another level.
Speaking of people watching the development of Madison Taylor and the rest of this amazing team, we wanted to talk with you about a couple of big picture lacrosse topics and the history of just your unparalleled career. But obviously, leading in, like one of the things that Northwestern fans have been talking about really since the very moments that we saw that this football expansion project on the lake was going to come about is the chance to put the lacrosse attendance record where it rightly belongs in Martin Stadium. And we know that, I mean, we could even look ahead, and we'll probably touch on this later. We know that Northwestern may have an excellent chance to do this next season, particularly next postseason, when NU hosts the NCAA lacrosse tournament. But obviously, Northwestern fans are going to get their first bite at this attendance record apple this coming week, including specifically Thursday, April 17th against the Michigan Wolverines. From your vantage point, like you are very much focused, we know, on finishing this season strong, heading into senior week and playing two big games. But how are the efforts to take a shot at this record shaping up right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we're trying to do something special. I think you guys have mentioned it. We have had tremendous success over the years. And, with the confines of our stadium, we've really been able to, garner great crowds, great attention for our sport. But now with the facility that we have at the lake, it just poses a really cool opportunity for us to increase those crowds and for us to open the doors to people that maybe haven't, seen a game before. If people come and watch, they fall in love pretty quick. It's a really fast-paced, high-scoring game. There's just absolute incredible speed and athleticism throughout. And so I just encourage people, if you've never come out to support lacrosse, come out, help us try to do something special to lead the women's sports at Northwestern. We're just seeing how women's sports in general are just exploding across the country. And, we really feel like we have an opportunity right now where, people can kind of show up for this because we have the facility in place. We're so excited for next Thursday. We're going to have a really special environment. There's going to be, a fan zone, some of the similar things that you saw at football, and, right by the lake. So, if you have your family, I know a lot of kids have school off on Friday. It'll be a great night to spend by the lake on Thursday with just an absolute battle of Northwestern versus Michigan. We have a great rivalry. Their coach is a Wildcat, one of our best ever players in the history of the program, Hannah Nielsen. And it's just always a battle when we play them. So it'll be a great take. We really encourage people to come out. And then, we hope that is a prelude to what we can do going forward, especially next year. Having received the bid for the Final Four, that is an absolutely tremendous thing. Thanks to the support of Mark Jackson and the rest of our athletic department, we'll be the first school outside of the Eastern time zone, either men or women's lacrosse, to host a Final Four, which is a pretty cool thing. Obviously being on the lake, it will be epic. We will work as hard as we can to be in there, but nonetheless, we want to show this Thursday night that lacrosse is a really mainstay sport in the Midwest at Northwestern, and we can bring people out for the games, and we hope people will come out and support.
Well, I know Eric is going to be coming up from Cincinnati for the game, and John will be there as well. So, very, very much excited. I have some. Unfortunately, I'm not able to come, but definitely will be cheering from afar. Very, very exciting this upcoming week. But we'd like to step back a little bit and kind of talk a little bit about the history of your coaching career, and kind of bring us back to what brought you to Northwestern in the first place. I mean, like, lacrosse was really an East Coast sport at that point, but coming out to Evanston, what drew you to Northwestern in the first place?
Yeah, when I first graduated college, I I wanted to go back to the East Coast. I'm from the Boston area and, just really close with my family. I wanted to be in that area. And I had coached at a few different colleges, Brown, UMass, and then I was at Boston University at the time when I got the call from Northwestern. I really wasn't looking to move. Rick Taylor was the AD at the time, who had a history at Boston University, as well as some of the other administrators, Steve Green and Nancy Lyons. And that's where my brother played ice hockey in college. My brother was here in Chicago playing for the Blackhawks at the time. And, I called Tony and I just said, do you know what this place is, Northwestern? I'd never been to Evanston. And, he said he had come to a football game at one point and he said it's an awesome campus. And I had been to Chicago to see Blackhawk games. So even though I wasn't really looking to move, my husband really encouraged me to come out on the interview. And when I came out, I was just like, oh gosh, this is really nice. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. So it was a very difficult decision, but I chose to take a chance. I just really loved the people that I met. I felt like the combination of the academic piece with athletics, was a real win-win for the potential in the sport of lacrosse. And, with my background, I felt like I could attract some really good people to come and play for us. So I took a chance. Obviously, had a lot of early success. In our fourth year, we won, and then we won the next 7 out of 8 championships. And that was just like, a crazy, tremendous run. I was almost like too naive to even understand what was happening. And then we lost in 2013 in the Final Four, and then 2 years later we didn't make a Final Four, which was something that hadn't happened in a long time. And then it took a while for us. I think it took like 11 years for us to get back. I was watching UConn women's basketball. They had a very similar, run, and then, not run, not making to Final Fours. And then now this year winning. I think theirs was 12 years in between. And, that build back up was really, really challenging. I think it was, a change in generation. I had really looked internally into some of the things that I was doing and my staff and really just like reinvent ourselves. It was a great opportunity to change and look within and become a better version of ourselves. And it was a lot of fun once we decided to do that. And, in 2019, we were able to make it back to the Final Four. And then, we've been in a steady climb since then. And in 23, we won again. So we're looking to kind of, stay steady. That's our goal. I feel like we understand our formula a lot better now than when we were having that crazy run of success before. I think the competition has stiffened quite a bit, but I really feel confident in our ability to compete and, stay competitive year in and year out, just with how an amazing institution Northwestern is and the support that we receive and just the work rate that our student athletes are willing to put in.
We are so excited that you brought all of this up because anyone who listens to the pod and has listened for a long time knows that we have mentioned your name again and again in reference to a specific thing that in our mind, the great coaches across all sports, college and professional, have beyond the championships, beyond everything. It's the ability to adjust. And it's everything that you just talked about and that you were talking about. You mentioned Gino Ariema. That's a perfect example of everything that we've talked about. A name that we bring up all the time, in addition to you, is Nick Saban, because it's the similar situation of a coach adapting a winning formula, but having a winning formula, having installed an incredible culture, but then being willing to adapt that over time. Um, we would love to hear you kind of get into some of the specifics about that. One of the things relative to the timeline that you were just talking about that we have just been fascinated with is the whole introduction of the shot clock within college lacrosse, and this seismic shift, and just the need to have to adapt to that. Can you kind of take us back and walk us through that shift? Like, when did you become aware that that change was coming? And then what were the subsequent years, like, in terms of like adjusting to that aspect of the game?
Yeah, I think it was actually right around the period where we were kind of like, I think when we first started to lose um and not make Final Fours, I'm a very competitive person. I'm extremely hard worker, and my answer to the question of why we're not having the success that we want to have was just to work harder and to just try to kind of push through the situation. And I felt like we got to the point where the harder we worked, the less fun we were having. And it just wasn't enjoyable. I think that, like, our players, you could see they were feeling the stress of not having the success that they wanted to. We wanted them to be successful. And I just really thought back to the beginning stages of our program, and success really wasn't that much of a factor. um it was more focused in on development. And so that was the first step. And when I thought about this, I talked to my husband, who's an assistant coach, and I just said, I had really thought out, like, the changes that I wanted to make within myself and within the program. And when I sat down with him, he was like, he went right to the tactics. He was like, okay, listen, I think that the shot clock is coming in. I think that we can really do things different offensively. I was actually coaching the offense at the time, and we had the current Hopkins assistant coach. I mean, the current Hopkins head coach was our assistant coach, Tim McCormick. He was kind of spearheading the D, and I just said, like, I'll help Tim on the D, and then I can kind of bounce back and forth. And Scott said that, he really felt like, with his experience coaching professional men's lacrosse and college men's lacrosse, he could bring some new tactics to the table that would really benefit us. There was also, like, penalties that were coming in. So there's going to be, like, a power play type situation that we had never had before too. So I thought that was, a really cool thing that he could bring to the table. And that's when we started to reinvent ourselves. We were reinventing ourselves culturally, but also tactically too. And I think that that's been just such a fun process to do both of those. I would say probably, I've been the spearheader of the cultural piece, and Scott has done a lot of the offensive, tactical piece. He's kind of really been invested in that. And then when Tim left to go to, to go to Arizona State, and now he's at Hopkins. But that's when I took over the defense, and I've kind of been the point person on that end of the field. And both Scott and I really still collaborate on both ends of the field, but it's kind of, we have a great advantage because we have basically two head coaches on the sideline, and that's probably pretty rare. So and there's obviously, like, a strong trust level there. So it's been a lot of fun, and we just continue to try to evolve. We want to stay ahead of the curve tactically, culturally, with what we do. And that's been a really fun process. I've actually gotten so into just like the mindset piece of it. I actually worked with an Olympian last summer. I
Oh, wow.
helped a wrestler. My daughter is a wrestler, and one of her teammates from her club, her coach asked if I could help, because I had, kind of talked to him about, some of the things that we do. And she really needed a female mentor because most of her coaches were male. And so I kind of served as a mentor to her, and she's actually a local product, Kennedy Blades. And she won the Olympic trials, beat a woman who had been to the last couple Olympics. And then she ended up going and winning a silver medal. So that was like a really cool experience too, to just kind of test out my just my skills and develop myself in a different way, where I was coaching, but not coaching the tactical piece and just coaching the mentality piece. And I feel like it's really helped me become super confident in that aspect of my coaching ability.
Well, I mean that's an incredible story. I had never heard that before. That's awesome. As we talk about transformation, as we talk about the way things change, I mean, so much has changed even in the last few years with the advent of the transfer portal and players being able to move around a little bit more. I mean, we've seen all of this incredible homegrown talent for years and years and years, but now we're looking, you're seeing players coming in, Riley Campbell, Nikki Miles, Delaney Schweitzer. How have you been able to adjust the program to adapt to both the homegrown players and be able to bring in all these transfers coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, you have to be adaptable. You have to live in the world that you're presented with, and I think I think initially when the transport portal came out, it was like, you're not really sure like how people are going to integrate. And when we had Haley Radigan come in, we just saw how easy, she was able to integrate. And, she was a real key factor for us having a high level of success. And then we had Molly in the cage. And so I think we gained like a little bit of a confidence level of, okay, like as long as these players fit our culture, fit what the need is, we feel like we can kind of create a system where, we can have both homegrown talent and continue to develop players within the program, but then also kind of live in this world where, you kind of have to evaluate the talent in the portal, because if you don't get the talent in the portal, someone else is going to. So, just seeing, is this player right culturally? Are they right tactically? Will they be able to compete at this level? And I think we've done a really good job at that. And to be honest, recruiting a 21, 22-year-old, I feel like those players really understand the value of Northwestern, the value of the connections that you gain at Northwestern, the value of our coaching staff and how we run things. They've had an alternate experience. And, when we sell to them, I think they understand, what we do and what's important to us, and the players that are right for us really get excited about that. So we need to continue to stay in both lanes. We can't, get too much into transfers or too much into just homegrown talent, we will have both and continue to, evolve in that area.
In that vein, as you're looking forward, what do you see? What do you anticipate as some of the next challenges that the program will need to adapt to?
Obviously this house settlement and all of the changes within the sport, you could potentially have a roster cap. Ours is pretty high at 38. But just really managing, the ability for schools can go all the way up to 38 scholarships. Right now we're at 12. So, it's going to be critical for us to be really smart with the way that we recruit and, utilizing the dollars that we have in the right way. And just, really just sticking true to our own philosophy and not getting caught up in, what someone else is doing. I think that's something that we've done really well over the years. We don't get caught up in the hype. We just do what's right for our program. And as a result, we'll find really great talent, in, really unordinary places. So we will continue to do that and continue to really just be diligent with everything that we do from a recruiting perspective. But our development piece is our most important piece, and that's really our lifeblood.
You talk about bringing talent in from non-traditional places, and that kind of leads right into something I'm really interested in talking about, in that, like we mentioned earlier, lacrosse has just been traditionally this East Coast sport. But as you have built this program in Chicago, in Evanston, the sport of lacrosse has really become a nationwide sport. I mean, how has it been watching lacrosse as a sport grow from just this East Coast sport, a niche sport, into a national phenomenon?
Yeah, it's been really cool just to see the progression of the sport in general. I think that, you drive down the street now and you're going to see lacrosse nets in front yards all over the place. And, it wasn't necessarily like that when I first got here. It's a type of a sport that when you pick up the stick, you can fall in love with it very quickly. And it's just incorporates the aspects of so many other sports. I mean, the offense and the defensive concepts are very similar to basketball. The spatial awareness is very similar to soccer. The cutting, and it's very similar to football. There's so many sports that are incorporated. You have the subbing. It's, you're moving people in and out of the game like ice hockey. So I think that, like, anyone who plays any game can really pick it up. And you see that on the men's side in men's lacrosse. You're seeing now, like, football coaches pick up men's lacrosse players and they're playing both sports. You see it on the women's side. We had 2 field hockey players cross over and play field hockey lacrosse last year. So there's just so much crossover, and obviously the greatest example of it is Pat Spencer, right?
Oh, yeah.
He started in the game of lacrosse, and I remember when Coach Collins was recruiting him. I think people were like, "What is this? This is kind of crazy. Like this kid can't play at this level at basketball." And obviously, our staff and our players were big fans of Pat Spencer before the basketball, fans knew him. And just to see what he's been able to achieve, you really see the similarities in the two sports. It's pretty cool to see him now, wearing a Golden State uniform and having success there.
we've joked before that somehow Pat Spencer, one of the most decorated college lacrosse players ever, who now plays for the Golden State Warriors, isn't the most decorated lacrosse player to come through Northwestern in the past 5 years.
For sure.
Because Izzy Skane exists. We've
Yes.
found that hilarious. Dovetailing kind of right with what Sam was saying and what you were saying, we were curious too. I mean, again, like we could list all of your accolades forever. I mean, again, 10 national championships as a player and a coach it's unparalleled. But as Sam alluded to, and as you were talking about, I mean, beyond just the championships, you have had this massive impact. Growing, I mean, I feel like so many coaches would say that the goal is to grow a program and make a program, build a program. And you, of course, have absolutely done that. But you've also kind of built a sport nationally and particularly in the Midwest. And when people think lacrosse now, I mean, we were talking about, the tournament next year, but when people think lacrosse now, they look to the Midwest and they look to Northwestern. And I mean, you mentioned Hannah Nielsen earlier, but it's like your coaching tree is incredible. And there are programs all over the country with former Northwestern players that trace their lacrosse roots to the Midwest, to Northwestern. What has it meant to you to shape not only the success of a program, but the way that lacrosse has grown in the Midwest and nationally?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of my goals when I came to Northwestern, is to try to help this area grow, and also just to grow our program so that it is respected on a very, very high level at the university. And it's been really cool to see. Our old athletic director, Mark Murphy, he used to say that, the success that we had in 2005, 2006, 2007, and beyond, that really injected a sense of belief in Northwestern athletics in general. I remember vividly when I first came to Northwestern, people would say, "Oh, you're going to have success here, and then you'll go on to a better program, and you'll be able to win at the highest level." And I would get very offended when I would hear that and think to myself, "That's not true. We're going to be successful here." And I think that there's so much belief within athletics that we can be successful across the board at the highest level. And, you're seeing that more and more each year with all of the programs. And that's been just such a cool progression from, my time here within the program. And, I'd like to think that we had a little bit to do with that, just in terms of like the belief, and the peers seeing, hey, I remember actually when we were having success in the early years, I think it might have been like after our first championship, this wrestler, Jake Herbert, walked into my office and he said, "I'm going to have success like you guys. I'm going to be just as successful as you." He won 3 national championships at Northwestern and became an Olympian. And the girls that he was friends with won 4, so they beat him out. But I think that's an example right there of just spreading belief. And now you're seeing field hockey winning national championships too, and this is really becoming a destination for athletes to come and have success at the highest level. You're seeing pictures of it every day across every sport. And so, all of the coaches are committed to continuing that tradition and just building that up. And we're just lucky to be in this place right now. We're at a great university. We're in the best conference in the country. And it's a good place to be right now.
Coach, when you were talking earlier about what initially brought you to Chicago and to Northwestern and getting started, right? And then the early success, almost not knowing, what you were working with at the time. I was in the back of my head, I was thinking, is there a moment when it crystallized? And not that you were thinking about going to a different program or otherwise, like you were just talking about, but is there a moment when it crystallized that, oh, this is home, this is where I want to plant my flag? And you've just shared a couple of anecdotes that are probably some of those moments, but I think what's really not lost on certainly us, but the Northwestern community, the broader lacrosse community, is the opportunity you talked about for this attendance record on the 17th, and maybe even more importantly, the Final Four coming to Chicago in 2026. It starts with that decision to take a leap back in 2002, and it's an incredible journey to look back on.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like when I do something, I get very zeroed in and committed, and I'm very loyal to what I'm doing or the people I'm working with. So, I found it. I had obviously many opportunities to leave Northwestern, and I just found it hard to leave what I had built. This was, I had so much pride in it, and the pull to be maybe a little closer to my family, that was probably the biggest pull, but I just really felt good about what being at Northwestern University represents, the people here, and I've been through a lot of different leadership over the years, and that characteristic really hasn't changed. What we represent here, it stays constant, and I think that's what's really special at Northwestern, to be able to develop student athletes that really care strongly and deeply about their academics and their athletics in a shared way, and then that want to really achieve big things in their life. And I think that sport is just a platform for them to practice how to become strong, how to become resilient, how to become great people, and work in a team environment. And so, I love all of those things about Northwestern, and those are the things that have kept me and my husband here. And obviously, like, once we had kids, I mean, now our kids are ingrained in this town, in this university, and in this community, and those are tough bonds to break.
This is all warming our hearts so much Northwestern. And all I mean, again, it's what every Northwestern fan believes so fervently about this program. And I think one of the things we were talking, when we had Coach Drohan with the softball program on a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the tailgate scene, which is going to, I think, dovetail right with what fans are going to experience on the 17th. But it's like the ability to be right in the middle of campus and like experience, oh yeah, hey, like everything that we love so much, like even for like this temporary time, we're put right in the middle of it. And of course, like on the lake, like that's what everyone gets to experience. I think in a way to maybe kind of bring all this home, like we did have one little question for you, and I suppose in a way it relates to everything you're talking about, like your entire coaching mindset, your mentality, building a program, everything that's special about an elite academic institution, and everything. And based on all of that, I want to kind of rewind to last spring, to something that every Northwestern fan noticed. And on one hand, hey, we know this might be privileged information, but it does seem to be kind of important right now. Was Bill Belichick picking your brain on all of these things as he was trying to figure out how to build a solid college program himself? Like, was he coming to you and saying, hey, I maybe this Division I thing is for me, so I'm going to go to the source and learn how to do it the right way?
I don't know if he had, I think at that point he was still pretty wide open. He didn't have a college opportunity. But I know his son was coaching at Washington, so he spent a lot of time there. His daughter who we kind of helped get into the college coaching ranks. She is the head coach at Holy Cross for lacrosse, and so I think, one of the conversations that we had when he was out, he just said it's kind of crazy with all the money that NFL teams have. He goes, all the colleges have so much more, facilities and resources relative to that. And we just talked about little things like that. I think, looking back, I don't know if he was thinking the college thing at that point. He didn't mention that to me, but I think Coach Belichick is just a really unique individual. He really cares deeply about his relationships in the coaching ranks, and he will ask, like, I remember one time they were going for a Super Bowl and he texted me, "Hey, what do you think?" And I'm like, "I don't know what I think." I'm like, "Scott, what do you think about this?" But, I think that's just how humble he is as a person. He's very different than he comes off in the media, and he's just a really like run-of-the-mill, humble guy. I think that's probably why we tend to connect, because that's kind of how I view myself as well, is just kind of a run-of-the-mill. And it's funny because when he was coaching for the Patriots, he lived in my hometown. So that's how I initially got connected with him. Scott, my husband, told me I should just call him out of the blue. And I just said, "Okay, yeah, Scott, I'll call Coach Belichick. Just get me his number." And he literally went on to Google and Googled the Patriots and got the number. And I called them, and they were like, "Yeah, we can't patch you through to Coach Belichick." And so I left a message with his assistant, and he actually called me back that night.
Oh,
wow.
That's amazing.
He has a lot of roots in the sport of lacrosse, and a lot of love for the sport. He grew up at the Naval Academy. His dad coached there, and he played lacrosse, and so he's been a great supporter of our sport. Now being down at UNC, he's got some multi-sport athletes coming in to play men's lacrosse and football, and he's just always been a great supporter of our sport, which has been awesome.
Take a flyer on Northwestern, call Coach Belichick. Scott's full of good ideas, I guess.
Yeah, some good, some not so good. That was a good one.
Oh, well, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on with us. We really, really appreciate it. We're excited to watch the last 3 games in the regular season. Games against Oregon on Sunday, and then the big one, game against Michigan under the lights next Thursday, the 17th. And then, getting into the postseason, we're so excited to see how far this team can go. Just, you've been such an incredible run this year, especially considering, like we talked about, the turnover, and to watch this team just perform the way that you have. It's just awesome. So wanted to say that, and thanks for taking the time to jump on again, and we really appreciate it, and we will see you out at the stadium in next week.
Thanks so much. Again, just plug in. Hope people can come out for the 17th. It's going to be an awesome night. Great fan festival, great family environments. And if you haven't seen lacrosse, you'll get hooked pretty quick.
And then, of course, it's not lost on us that, as we talk about Coach Belichick, the Final Four this year is at Foxborough.
That's right. That's what we're shooting for.
Well, Coach.
Foxborough, Martin Stadium of the East, they call it.
Yes, exactly.
Once again, thank you, Coach Kelly Amonte Hiller, taking the time to jump on with us. What a conversation! That was incredible. The stories that she has, and the background, like, everything she brings to the sport is it's just awesome.
A coach's coach.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, I think as lay people, as we are, and really as anyone who's listening to this pod, where it's like, you want to know what a championship coach is. You want to know why this person has 2 rings as a player and 8 rings as a coach. The mentality, everything that she talks about. I mean, it's the entire approach, the culture building, the way she talks about team mentality. I mean, we're asking her about, like pivots in the game and everything, and she's talking about just building a culture where you're bringing it back to love of the game and just being excited to compete and all of these different things. And then just talking about just being so competitive and so building a winning culture that she's working with like a wrestler in her free time. I mean, this is coaching excellence. I mean, this is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just really, really great conversation. Very excited that we had the opportunity to talk with her.
I want to mention one other little thing too. And she was incredibly humble when she brought it up, because she's an incredibly humble person. But I hope it wasn't lost on any of you that Bill Belichick was texting her, asking her for coaching advice. Did she say before a Super Bowl? Like again, this is a very humble person talking to another very humble person, and these two happen to be in a club that there aren't but more than 5 other people in. When you have this many championships, that you're like, as guys, we were joking, yeah, it's like
I texted Wooden, I reached out to Gino, I asked Bill to wash some stuff. Oh, I reached out to Kelly.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. It's like this is the best of the best of the best we're talking about, and we're just so privileged to be able to pick her brain.
A couple housekeeping notes. Again, next Thursday, the 17th, if you have the opportunity to get out to Martin Stadium, it's going to be an awesome atmosphere. John, you and Eric are going to be there. Like I said, I wish I could come as well, but and anyone who's listening, go out, look for us.
Yeah, reach out. Let us know you're going to be there. We'll sync up. We'll enjoy the spectacle. It's going to be, frankly, unlike any event that's happened in this spot before.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And again, it's going to be, like we said, it's a huge deal. It's going to be a preview for everything we were talking about, that next year, the women's lacrosse Final Four in one of the most traditionally East Coast sports ever. It has been so transformed to a Midwest sport by the power of the program that Kelly Amonte Hiller has built that we are going to be hosting the Final Four next year. I mean, it's incredible, and it's a testament to the culture and everything. And yeah, we are going to have a blast on the 17th. So yeah, find Scuzz and I. We'll be there. I'll be bringing the family, and yeah, we're planning to have a ball.
So that's next Thursday, and then looking ahead, one Thursday later is the first round of the NFL draft. Once again, we will be joining up with Gary Seegers and Chris Giannini to do our annual live draft spectacular, as we talk about the first round of the NFL draft as it happens in real time, getting unhinged, enjoying a few beverages as the night goes on, and that's
it's every bit of preparation and just everything that we brought to an interview of this caliber tonight. You're not going to see any of that 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, just throw
forewarned.
Throw that out the
window. It's a different kind of thing.
It's a good. It's always a good time, and we will be streaming that live as soon as we get the link to that. We'll put that up. You can watch us live on YouTube, and then we'll have the feed on our YouTube channel after it's all said and done. In case anyone wants to relive the evening, it'll be a good time. Anything else to mention before we get out of here?
This is just one other thing from the interview that's been rolling around in my brain, because we know so many of you are Northwestern football fans, as we are, and one of the things that has been a point of emphasis, right, within the Northwestern football fan community specifically has been this sea change relative to transfers and relative to the winter portal and all of these players we've got in and the positive impact that's having on the football team. And when we were talking to Coach Amonte Hiller, one of the fantastic points that she made, which dovetails with our own experience and dovetails with the fact that this should have happened before it happened, is when you're selling transfers or you're looking for players in the transfer portal and you're dealing with some of these older players who've had a college experience at another program and done the college work and everything, it's not like, oh, what this is like compromising academic standards, like that this somehow represents doing things differently. These players, Coach Amonte Hiller mentioned it with the lacrosse players that she has had come in through the portal. And this has been 100% true with the players we have talked to and their families coming in through the portal for football. They value the academic experience above all. Like, it is a huge deal for them. These are not high school kids. These are college kids who've experienced college academics. And they very much value the college experience. They very much understand the value of the Northwestern education they're going to get when they transfer over. And we've talked to several of the families of players who've transferred over and been in the program for a couple of years now, and it's a huge impact for them. So it just goes one more to say, like, everything that Northwestern has adapted to within all sports, but I think for a lot of you, like within football relative to the transfer portal, there's a huge academic piece to this too, and it's the Northwestern piece, and there's no compromising of the culture that makes this place special whatsoever as we transform to this new landscape. Like, the players get it and they're about it.
It's so easy to be cynical about college sports with like the prevailing stories in the media relating to transfer portal, NIL, et cetera. The other piece that Coach Amonte Hiller mentioned is, the scholarships, and I believe she said 38 players on Northwestern's team. Only 12 of those, or they only have 12 scholarships.
Yeah,
I'm sure
wild.
some of those are broken up, right? Half here, quarter there, et cetera, et cetera. But like, just think about that. Like this is not, college sports is not the pay for play, Wild West bonanza that a lot of folks would make it out to be right now. And it is a testament to the way Coach Amonte Hiller and her staff, the way Northwestern, the way, what we talked about with Mark Jackson, as he's been working with the administration, et cetera, to impact some of these things. Like, this is a place and a program and a platform to be proud of.
Yeah. I mean, I think the final thing I bring it back to, I think, Scuzz, during the interview, you mentioned the previous conversations we've had with Sydney Supley, because it dovetailed right with what Coach Amonte Hiller was saying, which is like, this team, as Northwestern athletic programs is full of just competers who just go and are like, I'm at like one of the best schools in the country and I'm trying to get A's in all of my classes and I'm trying to win every single game and I'm trying to work and be the best at everything that I do. And one of her biggest things as a coach is to be like, okay, but remember to love what you do, because that's like a hugely important thing. And it's like, this is the school that you root for, people. These are the programs that you root for. It's people who are finding ways to find love in the game while they are competing at the absolute highest level in the classroom and on the field. Like, this is what you want. This is what you want Northwestern to be, and this is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, all social media aspects, outlets at Westlaw Pirates. And you can always email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics, and look for us in the West Lot of Ryan Field flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Scausbo, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.